right, everybody, we have a great guest today. We have Matt Goosey, and he'll explain a little bit about himself. I'm so excited to talk to you guys all about what he's been up to, because on this show we talk about how organizations came into being and how they've succeeded and some of the things over the years and pitfalls to avoid. And Matt has had a few of those in his history, as have I, and just a few pointers. And one of the things, you can see him here, but before I completely introduce him, we will talk about his manufacturing story, Mrs. Machinery. Anyways, it'll be a fun story today. So I'm so excited about this. Welcome, Matt.
Well, thanks for having me on, and all the guests that watch your podcast or listen to this. Hello, nice to meet you. I hope at the end of this thing you're done listening. You maybe get a golden nugget or two, or find one along the way that'll help you be successful. Because I'm addicted to seeing people be successful. So, and learn from my mistakes.
Well, and it's so interesting. So Matt sent me his book, and I have been so interested in let me flip to it really quick. You have your life's lessons at the end. And I'm trying to remember how you actually titled it, 41 Life Lessons for Unstoppable Growth. And I love the fact that it's not just company growth or organizational growth. It also intertwines your human growth, right? So I just love that. So let's talk about a little bit about why you decided to write this book, because you told me this and I thought that was very interesting, and kind of the joy behind it, and then the 41 points. But we're not going to get into all 41 today. Just some of the key things.
Yeah, really, the book was just something that popped up in the last 2 years. Been on a lot of podcasts. Started probably doing podcasts since 2016, and when I was on a marketing campaign for IMTS, which is, by the way, this Super Bowl of manufacturing. And I think the very first one was a guy named Jim Carr. I had no idea what I was doing. Just like anything else, you try it your first time, you kind of fail at it, and you learn something from it, and you pick up the pieces and move forward as steps. Well, then I found naturally started enjoying them, and you get to meet people and talk about things like we're doing today that you never would have had the opportunity to do. So, what really was a turning point of them, what really got people in 2020 during COVID, we couldn't see people. And at the time, everybody was searching for supply chains, and I ended up getting myself in the New York Times and then going on Fox News, and then the thing just exploded. It seemed like everybody wanted to all of a sudden hear my story, and people reached out to me, and so I just started talking about my story, and through that, people's like, you should write a book someday. I'm like, oh, I failed in English. I can barely spell my name. I can barely type an email. Well, you can find ghostwriters, and so one of the high school programs I work with, we have workshops through the year, and there was a guy sitting next to me from the Koch Foundation, learning about the school and everything. And he said, well, we're going to write a book about the program. So they wrote a book, and I'm like, maybe that's something I should do. So I just told God laid it on my heart one day, and I said, well, God, if you want me to write this book, you're going to have to find me the time to write it. So figure that out, and then I'll start writing it. Well, long and behold, God started laying a path out for me. He's like, here's some time coming up. Here's when you should do it. And it took me about a year. I first started looking at pictures of old times. Luckily, we had pictures from way back from the beginning. And then I just started looking at them, and I started trying to remember, because the early days were the hardest to remember, because that's 39 years ago. So now in the last 5 years, it's a lot easier. And just started documenting it. And I had tried a few trial runs of like some hunting stories and some daily life stories. And okay, maybe I can do this. So I took a whole 10 days off. I took a sabbatical, and I went up and visited my father-in-law, who my mother-in-law just passed away, and spent 10 days with him. I got up at 7 in the morning, and at 7 at night, I just started typing things up. and it just naturally flowed. Now it's my first book, so there's a few things you learn. Like I said, I learned it's my first book, like my first podcast. There's things I wish I could do different again, but um, and the thing that sold me on it, to be honest with you, a good friend of mine by this name is Steve Miller. He's wrote several books. He's run Uncopyable. Used to be a golfer. His wife's wonderful, and he kind of like became my consultant, not a consultant, but guiding me how to write a book. And I learned a lot of tips. So I just reached out, like it's like in the book, ask for help, find a mentor, find somebody to help you. And that's what I did. And
I think
he
that's
told me,
probably rule one. Find a
yeah,
mentor. Keep
find a
going.
mentor. And, you know, I said, geez, Steve, that's going to cost a lot of money. And he goes, it's not about the money, man. What you got to think of this is it's a company brochure. And I'm like, company brochure. There we go. Because, you try to tell people your story instead of you go give a fancy brochure, it's cost you quite a bit of money. But now you can just say, here's my life story. And people start reading it and people like learn about me, either bad or good or ugly. He's like, maybe that's somebody I want to do business with. And hey, if this guy took the time to write a book about his company, it must be a good company. So that's kind of what I focused on. It's really, the book's about my journey. A lot of people, most of them, I've been fortunate to have some great people here that have helped me along the way, and it's nothing I've done. So, um, you know, that's really, and we got our 40th anniversary coming up, so I had a little bit of it to do with it. I wrote it, so that's kind of how I got it started. And um, what the biggest thing was, I wrote it, and then I found an editor, what they call ghostwriters. And they were from Ireland, of all places, but he was originally from U.S. and moved to Ireland like 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And he doesn't take anybody on. I had to interview them through the process, so they interview you about your story because they just won't take. They're kind of naturally known or world known for editors. So, and like the first question or second question he asked me is like, "Well, when are you gonna write your second book?" I was like, "Ah, I haven't got my first one wrote yet." And he goes, "Well, people that write one will write two." So, in the background, I've started to maybe someday I'll write a second book, but I'm starting to jot things down, and so I'm in the process of it. And they edited. I thought they did a good job. A lot of things we kicked out. The thing could have been 500 pages long. I'll be truthful with you, but a lot of it, the flow, keeping keeping it somewhat entertaining.
Hmm.
I think reading it from a manufacturing or machining or whatever, you'll understand it more. But if someone like you or doesn't know anything about manufacturing, it's probably a little boring at first until you get to my about chapter 9 or chapter 10, and that's
Oh,
some stuff that most people would be ashamed of their failures and wouldn't say it. But I wanted to tell people that nothing, nothing bad or good. I just wanted people to learn from my mistakes so they don't make that mistake or they look into it and I can prevent them from it. So
yeah.
it's really that's what it's about.
And
I,
I'm laughing because you said that doesn't know about machining, and I was in heavy equipment manufacturing, so I definitely know about machining.
well,
uh, I
we're
owned a
women owned.
construction company for
Okay.
11
Oh,
years. But yes, I found it very entertaining. And one of the things that I think is very interesting is one of the call outs was you said, it could have been 500 pages long. So I think society as a whole is very starved, especially with AI, starved for genuine and authentic. And how do you summarize a life in less than 200 pages? I mean, honestly, a lifetime of experience. I think you could have a little red wagon full of books to explain your story. I mean, it's amazing stuff that people do in their life, and I love that you used it as your business card and thought of it more in a way of mentoring the next generation or mentoring the next people that might be in the same boat that you were in or understand that. Because we have a generation of business owners that are obviously in the 25 to 35 range right now, and they're all trying to figure out what not to do and what to do in this. And that's kind of why I loved reading the 41 bullets of, here's what to do, here's my points, go through this. And then you cite several authors and several mentors that also have 500 pages of or more of life
Yep.
history.
Yep.
And I think that that's kind of also helping pass the torch from, you've always got two sides of the fence. You've got the don't help me, but I want help. And then there's the I'm not stupid. Let me listen and
Yep.
learn from it.
Yep.
And I want help. So you'll get the I don't want help that will secretly go and read the 41 points and figure it out. But
Yeah,
it's an
those
awesome.
yeah, those 41 points were something that I've been saving probably for the last 20 years. So that them weren't like just developed in the last 2 years. Just those are ones
Uh-huh.
that when I get stuck in a situation, I kind of turn like the Bible. You can always find all your problems a lot of your problems to life in the Bible. And I just started writing down quotes that I came up with that would always help me through a rough time or rough section or rough day, and just kind of like push the reset button a little bit.
And it's such a smart way to do that, to collect your thoughts, because in growing organizations, you're going to run into things like you talked about with some of your pivots, problems, some of the things that had to happen. Especially, I mean, COVID is recent for those who are probably in this age bracket that are listening. But you described some things that, COVID was one of the instances, but you describe other things throughout the book. And I think, like, if you were to give between 25 to 45-year-olds your top three nuggets through the history, and I know it's hard to summarize your life, but what would you just kind of say, okay, from this, I would want these three things taken home?
Mentors. Find a mentor, and find a mentor that will tell you what you don't want to hear, not what you want to hear. My very first mentor is like, oh, he's my friend. I'm going to listen to him. Nothing wrong with that, but everything I said, he agreed to because he's my friend. So I
Yes.
finally found a mentor that had no invested interest in me. And that's kind of, I came from my peer groups that I had back in the day. I talk a little bit about. So yeah,
Mhm.
find a mentor. Like I say, when people start businesses, it's, you got to give 24/7. You got to risk everything financially. And number one, you got to have your family on board. And that's just like me, God's first in my life, my family, then my work. I hate to tell you that, but you got to have those in line. Otherwise, nothing. It'll usually end up failing. Not that it won't, but there's a high chance it will. It's That's that. And then just, I learned that um, I don't know if I should quote Bible verses, but one of them is it's it's about quick to listen, slow to anger, and slow to speak. And that I always thought that's the third thing, because I used to, when I was growing, I mean, everybody gets excited and just start spitting things out, and they're like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have said that. So quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, and then slow to speak, because you don't want to regret something you don't want to say. And just, it's like officiating, stay cool and calm. You
Yeah.
only control what you can control, because if you get excited, you ain't going to officiate good, and you're going to get, it's going to be a disaster. And that's like the three F's I talk about: fail fast, fix fast, and forget fast. And don't dwell on the past, because you can't, it is what it is, and you move on. So
Yeah. It holds you hostage if you keep dwelling on it. And it's the reality is, whatever your faith is, you're going to have some mantras from your faith. I happen to believe in the Bible and those things, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I look at the Bible and it has all of this history in it that teaches good things, even if you are not part of that faith.
mhm.
and
Yeah.
and we get all the, I mean, I don't care if you quote Simon Sinek. He's basically quoting half the things in the Bible. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep.
the
Yep.
anger, the three F's. I'm a big fan of servant leadership, and there's some things from Maxwell that are really cool. And so don't ever, yes, you can mention whatever you want, because everybody's got a God, even those that are not, that say they're atheist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you might
Yep.
as well. And as far as the three F's, I think it's very important that people know when you're founding a business. I remember a part of my journey. I was in a Vistage meeting, and the Vistage chairman was not my friend, but she told it how it was.
Yep.
And I remember her saying, make sure when you go into business that you have your vision and mission and all these things, because you're going to need to tether yourself back to a lot of it. And she said, and this is almost exactly what you said. She said, my my vision, because it depends on which way you like to look at the mission and vision tactics or not, and everything, is God, family, and business. And I
Hmm.
said, I am going to adopt that. And this is why: God, family, and business, because business can change lives faster than government can.
Yep.
And your family does have to buy in on it, because there is a high rate of business failure. In fact, almost, you make it past the first 5 years, you're probably okay.
Yep.
15 years, you're probably needing a pivot. So you're always on the risk end of things,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So, and whatever your God is, mine happens to be a Christian God, but whatever your God is, it is what sets your mantra of life, right? And how you treat your family, how you treat your employees, all of those things. So if you don't have that tethering, I would say that you're probably going to struggle with the happiness factor, at least for your business.
Oh, exactly. I'm not perfect, and I fall way short of glory to God, but I try to lift up and make, learn from my mistakes and say I'm sorry when I need to be sorry.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the reason that's how Amara started. That was my dad's philosophy. When the business, the shop we're actually in was where he worked and I worked and I was in high school. And when that place closed up overnight, he wanted to keep people jobs here, good paying jobs and have careers in Augusta. So that was our purpose. And then it was for God's purpose to keep people here. And I think, that's still the mission today, and take people that don't had some rough paths down the road that just need a reset button and a new change in life. And we love to bring them in here and turn them loose to our people, because our people want to uplift people. And our philosophy is, when we bring somebody new in, it's not like, oh, he's going to take my job. No, it's going to make their jobs easier. And we're going to show them the path and show them the right way and how to financially support yourself, and how to be a good person, good stewardship, because a lot of people never had that. They've come from broken homes. And so that's kind of more of a, I always want to say something with MRS. It's more of a mission field here than it is sometimes a machine shop. But so we've had a lot of success stories, and we've had some failures. I mean, people come in here and just, they just don't seem to listen. And well, they don't want to be told, hey, I got life figured out. Well, no, you don't. They don't like to hear that. So, but we try our
They
best.
don't, but you try your best. And I think so there's two books that also I have read that I kind of go in line with what you're talking about too. And one is Jack Stack's The Great Game of Business, which was obviously set in a scene. And I call the scene, I call it Nuns on the Run, but you can call it whatever you want. But there's this great story about a manufacturing plant pulling together in the Detroit steel crisis back in the day. And a lot of times people don't don't know about that crisis, but the picketers were picketing, and these guys had to deliver. and otherwise they were going to lose their contracts. So they went on the plant floor and said, how are we going to do this to all their employees, because their employees all needed jobs, right? And they're like, so band together, let's do this. And I thought it was a very interesting story, because obviously they said it wasn't the leaders that came up with this. This was the employees that came up with this. And it was, well, dress the drivers as nuns and take in the steel with school buses. And it was like, we want our jobs. We want to survive, so we've got to figure this out. And the other one is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? You're talking about teaching financials to people who need a reset sometimes in these manufacturing plants, and teaching them about cash flow. And it isn't about so much that they are unable to learn those things. It's that sometimes they're just never given the opportunity to learn those things, or they weren't ready for the opportunity. I know I was terrible at math for many reasons in junior high, so it scared me, and it took me a long time to start to love math. And of course, mechanical engineers and all of those guys are way into math, but the financial statements are the scorecard for all businesses. So if they can't learn to deal with the financial statements, a lot of times it doesn't trickle down into their families and their lives and some of those things. So I always thought that was those two together were very interesting. There's a ton of others, but you know what I mean? So yeah, I love that. So as you start to go down your next few years, what's one thing that you would tell this next generation to say, hey, just think about this and try to implement it?
Yeah, just the problem that I see with kids these days, younger adults, is that either they go to school, they don't go to school, but they want to be at the top. They want to stay right at the top, and they want to be our leaders, and they want the money, they want the big money, and they don't understand benefits. And I don't know if we're not doing a very good job of teaching that in the schools. And the best thing you can, when the first thing you can do is put money in your 401k right now. The fastest way of becoming a millionaire is, besides winning the lottery, is put money in your 401k when you're younger. And
Yeah.
that's
I wish somebody had taught me that.
yeah. And just like, they just, for example, if you're gonna, they say $20 an hour or whatever, it's just as for conversation's sake, $20 an hour. Well, I can go over here and make 22, or what's your benefits? I don't need benefits. And
Yeah.
buy in real estate, buy a house, don't rent. Renting's all right, but you got to build equity in your life. I have people here, I tell them that they're in their 30s and they're still renting. Well, I don't want to shovel, I don't want to snow, and I don't want to plow or lawnmower, but dude, you're giving out $1,500, $2,000 a month, where you could put that back on equity, and in 5, 10 years, you're going to make more, and then you're not give it away. So, and then kids, they all want brand new cars right away, so they go kind of backwards. They go,
Yeah.
don't dig deep in debt just because you can swipe a card and get something. That doesn't mean. I just see so many people getting so far behind so early, and 4-year colleges are great, but you're risking a lot of finance. And make sure you're dedicated and committed. Just don't go because someone told you to go, and figure it out when you get there. That just cringes when I hear that when I go to career fairs. I'm going to go to 4-year college. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to figure out when I get there. Like, no, no. I mean, I just smell debt. I smell failure right away.
Yeah.
So that's my goal when I go to schools. Otherwise, people in life just, it's it's hard because inflation is so high nowadays, and it's hard to build a family. But we need more people having kids, because that's we don't have that no more. It seems like nobody's having babies or kids and trying to start a family, and it builds a purpose. When you have kids, it's the most wonderful feeling in the world. You don't know what love is until you have a kid. That's just me. And now I got grandkids, and that's triples that feeling. So I'm blessed with 3 grandkids. So
Yeah. It's the I wish I knew syndrome, right? I actually have that on my LinkedIn profile. It's stopping the I wish I knew, because sometimes when you're younger, you have the energy to even do all of that, right? But I know that I actually had to, as a parent, I had to learn one of the lessons the hard way. I wanted my daughter to go to a 4-year college, graduate, follow in that footstep, because education is power, blah 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 blah. And she chose a different path, and in the trades, and it was like, it's been the most magical thing for her, is
Hmm.
to focus on the trades. And she's very industrious, very entrepreneurial. And it's, you get to a point in your career that if you're focused on that, you had a degree versus your triumphs as a in your career, it doesn't matter. There's very few things that you need that 4-year education for, unless you're going to go on, you know, to be an attorney, go on to be a
Yeah.
doctor. And actually, those are rife with problems that many don't make the money they think they're going to make. And I remember we were living in the Cayman Islands, and the general manager, he was actually the resort manager at the time. He was our friend, and we were, he was just hanging his head because he had hired, he was going to hire a Kamanian because she had graduated from college. He knew her dad, and he was hiring her. And I think one of the saddest things that happened was he the kid, I'll call it a kid at the time because they're maybe 21, and to me that's a kid still. Even when I was 21, we're still kids, right?
Hmm.
And she was so angry because he started her at the bottom, and she had graduated from college. How dare he start her at the bottom? And her dad intervened and said, oh yeah, if you're going to start her at the bottom, then I would rather she stay home and I'll just take care of her. And it was one of the most
Yeah.
tragic stories to me, because it was more about pride than it was about actually learning. And this resort manager went on to be the GM at several Ritz Carltons. And when I was, if anybody knew his story, he barely had a high school education out of France. And he had a great mentor out of the United States. He started as a cabana boy and worked his way up all the way to a GM position, and if people don't know it, they make bank when they're a GM of one of those big resorts.
Yeah.
And and so he would have been one of the best mentors for this kid, probably a fast track, because he was giving her a job based on the dad. Yes, I'll give her this job and her start. And I remember almost feeling sick at what the dad did to that daughter. Instead of encouraging her to go in and learn the real world experiences, instead of relying on a 4-year degree that really didn't teach you anything other than discipline. That
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn this in, turn this in. I don't remember jack tiddly squat from my degree other than discipline. I could learn to take a test. I could learn to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's a kind of a sad situation. Um, Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on 4-year degrees. I think that there is a place, and I love it. And I told somebody once that if I could get paid to just learn all day long, I would
Yeah.
sit there and just learn all day long. I love the university environment. I loved all of the teaching and all of those wonderful things. But it's not the end all be all. And sometimes that experience quotient, I'll call it that, is missing when you're straight out of high school or college. You just don't, you have to experience a few things before, and that's really what should be on your resume. What have you experienced
Oh,
and done well as an outcome?
so I want to
Yeah.
go a lot of different points here. I'll just be short and brief, but first thing when you're in school, go job shadow. job shadow as many places as you can, so you make that correct decision. And then
Yeah.
in manufacturing and anything in general, technology changes so fast that I I'm a big pro advocate for not going to school. I'm on the board, but what works for us is they come bring someone in here, bring someone to business, kind of learn the ropes, send them off to a school like our cutting tool people. We go there for a week, or our machine tool go there for a week. Come back, bring that knowledge, learn it, and apply it for the next 3 months, and then go off for another week.
Yeah.
Um, and then you can apply it right away because if you learn everything in 1 year, you forget half of it anyway. So the only thing college does for you when you get a degree, it teaches you how to learn. And so when we bring people that have got a 4 year degree that went out in life and can't really make a lot of money and kind of failed at it, and then they come in here and work, I know they know how to learn. So that does help. But the
Yeah.
only problem is they got this big debt over their head where you just come off the street and we taught you and teach you our way, or so, then you can learn and grow really naturally, real fast and excel. And I mean, Trump, 5 years experience here trumps a 2 year degree. So that's just our philosophy. Shame on me
Yeah.
for saying that, but
No, because we're not doing shame culture. We're just
yeah,
saying that there is different paths and different journeys for different people. And when you're a founder, you are going to put on a hat that has to make all those decisions.
hmm
And you are going to put on a hat and be all those decisions at any point, right? You're going to be the salesperson, you're going to be the leader, you're going to be in in
yeah,
your in your situation, you're going to be out on the floor learning, building a product, and you are going to be working financials, because if you don't, you won't have cash flow in order to pay anything.
what's that?
Right? Gosh, I have to actually pay for something. And you're going to have employees that don't want to work for you, and you're going to have employees that love you, and you're going to have all sorts of the entire experience end to end. As I work with some leaders, and they're like, I want out of sales. And I'm like, you're not ready to be out of sales as the leader. The reason why is you're the only one who can tell the story at this point, and you don't have enough revenue coming in to not be the one who's telling that story at this point.
Yep,
If you have enough
yep,
revenue to not be telling that story, and then you can clone yourself, then
yep.
you can get out of the salesman hat. Otherwise, go take a sales course and learn to sell what you're doing. And that's another interesting story. Sales is a four-letter word, but unfortunately, without sales, you have no revenue and you have no company. So you're off the.
Yeah. Well, so why would you want to be in business? But don't let that distract you. It's just a lot
Yeah.
more responsibility. And
Yeah. Well, this has been, I really have enjoyed, first of all, knowing Matt. We met on LinkedIn, and I was looking at what he was doing and thought it was very interesting. And second of all, when he agreed to send me a signed copy of his book, it's just so sweet. I mean, it's just what he says in it is so genuine and really looking out for your fellow human, honestly, on that. So check it out. It's um, I'll call it MRS machining, but I thought it was, you and I know the backstory behind some of that too. But anyways, and what's the best place to get a hold of you, Matt, if they want to have, because Matt's very available. He makes himself available. So
you know, it's you can just Google my name, Matt Goosey, and you pops up. But I know LinkedIn's a great access. Matt Guse. You can find me on there. A lot of people reach out to me, and then I'll just give you my contact.
it's good.
Just look up
Awesome.
Augusta, Wisconsin. So, but I appreciate you having me on. This is fun stuff. I love talking to people, and I love getting to know new people because I've always learned things. So,
Yeah, well, you're amazing. And everybody, this is another great interview with a founder owner journey. And so if you liked it, loved it, drop a like down, some comments, and let us know how we're doing it. And if you have any other subjects you want to talk about on the show, DM me that too. And so thank you again, Matt, for being on, and have a blessed and just wonderful day.
Bye.
Too.